How many times have you found yourself repeating patterns as if something greater, something invisible, was guiding your actions? That feeling of being trapped in a dance you don't understand can be explained by the concept Carl Jung called the shadow. The shadow is the part of our psyche we'd rather ignore, repress, or deny. Yet it's precisely what we avoid that holds the most power over us. Jung once said, "What you resist persists." The shadow doesn't vanish just because you choose to ignore it. It finds indirect ways to manifest, often at the worst times, taking control of your decisions and behaviors. It's like an invisible director in the theater of your life, pulling the strings behind the scenes while you believe you're the star of the show. The shadow forms throughout our lives, especially in childhood. Early on, we learn which traits are socially acceptable and which are undesirable. Anger, selfishness, sexual impulses, or even creativity can be repressed, depending on the environment we grow up in. But these traits don't simply disappear, they retreat into the unconscious. And that's where the trouble begins. Picture a pressure cooker. The more you hold in the steam, the greater the force that builds, and the more violent the eventual explosion. The same goes for the shadow. The more you try to repress it, the more it finds subtle ways to express itself, through emotional crises, self-sabotage, or relationship conflicts. Have you ever felt like you're repeating the same mistakes, even when you try to do things differently? That's your shadow at work. Here's the paradox. What you fear most about yourself is exactly what holds the key to your transformation. Jung believed that integrating the shadow, what he called individuation, was the path to true freedom. It's not about eliminating the shadow, but recognizing it, understanding it, and integrating it into your conscious self. The shadow isn't all bad. Within it lies your suppressed strength, dormant talents, and untapped potential. Many people avoid confronting their shadow out of fear of what they might find. But as Jung said, a man does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. True self-knowledge demands courage. Light is only complete when it illuminates both the beautiful and the dark. The challenge is that in a society obsessed with perfection and flawless performance, we're taught to run from anything that feels imperfect or uncomfortable. But avoiding your shadow only hands its power to the unconscious. And the unconscious, left unchecked, runs your life, making you project insecurities onto others, blame the world for your failures, or create invisible barriers to your dreams. Integrating the shadow is a process. It begins with the simple act of recognizing the patterns you don't want to admit. Why do you react so strongly in certain situations? Why do certain types of people irritate you deeply? Often, what we criticize in others reflects parts of ourselves we'd rather not see. This is the mirror of the shadow. These moments of overreaction are like small invitations from the unconscious, whispering, "Look at me, I'm a part of you." Yet, it's common to ignore or push these revelations away. The shadow has a disguised way of showing itself. It appears in others' behavior, an irritating criticism, or even a simple comment that affects us disproportionately. When something bothers you so deeply, perhaps it's time to ask, what does this say about me? What am I trying to hide within myself? Confronting the shadow is a process that demands vulnerability, and this is where many people stumble. In a world that constantly encourages us to project an image of perfection and control, admitting that we are complex and imperfect is a daunting task. Yet it is precisely this complexity that makes us human and truly authentic. The shadow isn't something to be defeated, it's something to be acknowledged and understood. Jung said that by integrating the shadow, we become more whole. This doesn't mean accepting negativity, but embracing our full human nature with all its contrasts. By doing so, the shadow's power diminishes. What emerges is the ability to harness these once repressed qualities in a more conscious and balanced way. Integrating the shadow also brings profound freedom. The freedom to be who you are, without masks, without the need to please others or hide behind a facade. This, in turn, leads to a more authentic life. And authenticity, as Jung pointed out, is what truly allows us to live fully. But integrating the shadow isn't a simple or linear process. It can be uncomfortable, as the shadow holds repressed feelings, unresolved traumas, and aspects of our personality we reject. Looking inward and facing these parts can be painful, but it's also transformative. Pain often marks the starting point for healing. On a collective level, the concept of the shadow applies not only to individuals but also to society. Jung believed that just as individuals have a personal shadow, society also has a collective shadow. When a culture ignores significant aspects of its history, values, or even its diversity, it creates a collective shadow that manifests in social tensions, injustices, or prejudices. What you avoid in your personal life reflects not only your inner world, but also your social and cultural context. This is especially relevant when we consider power dynamics, inequalities, and social systems that perpetuate exclusion. What society rejects and marginalizes becomes its collective shadow, which continues to wield destructive power until it is recognized and addressed. For instance, when a society ignores the voices of minorities, the struggles of marginalized groups, or the historical pain of certain communities, it creates a shadow that affects not only the oppressed, but also those who turn a blind eye to this reality. The collective shadow, like the individual one, manifests in subtle yet powerful ways. It fuels cycles of injustice, prejudice, and ignorance. Only by acknowledging this collective shadow and confronting it with truth and empathy can society move toward true equality and harmony. And just as with the individual, recognizing the collective shadow takes courage. It's much easier to keep our eyes closed and continue enjoying the comforts of ignorance. But by doing so, we deny ourselves the potential for growth and evolution, both as individuals and as a society. Evolution, both individual and collective, begins when we decide to confront what we've been avoiding. Jung believed that the key to self-awareness lies in facing the unknown within ourselves. But how can we deal with this shadowy part in a practical and healthy way? The answer lies in awareness. By allowing yourself to observe your reactions, feelings, and thoughts without judgment, you start to notice the patterns that control you and begin unraveling the dynamics of the shadow. For instance, when you feel anger towards someone, take a moment to reflect on its true origin. Is it just a reaction to a situation, or is something deeper being triggered? Perhaps that person exhibits a behavior you dislike in yourself. Maybe the situation reflects a fear or insecurity you carry, but avoid addressing. Recognizing these touch points is the first step toward integrating the shadow. A practical tool in this process is self-observation, like keeping a shadow journal. Writing about your reactions, fears, frustrations, and even moments when you feel you're avoiding your true self helps externalize what's within you, providing a clearer perspective. This exercise allows you to see the connections between what you're avoiding and the patterns you keep repeating in your life. By paying attention to these insights, you start taking charge of your own destiny. However, even with your best efforts, don't expect the shadow to vanish completely. It's a fundamental part of who you are, and trying to eliminate it would be like erasing the night to live in perpetual daylight. Instead, the goal is to balance light and darkness, acknowledging and respecting both aspects. Darkness, the shadow, is not something to fear but to understand and accept. This balance is true freedom. It's not about striving for a perfect life where all problems are solved and shadows disappear. True freedom lies in accepting who we are in our entirety, including the difficult parts. This process leads to authenticity, the kind of authenticity that allows us to live a fuller life, free from the constraints of external expectations and aligned with our inner truth. On a societal level, recognizing the shadow is just as essential for creating a fair and equitable community. When a society confronts and understands its own biases and failures, it can begin to heal and grow. Only by acknowledging and addressing the collective shadow can we take meaningful steps toward equality, mutual understanding, and respect. The shadow, both personal and collective, has the potential to be destructive, but when seen clearly, understood, and accepted, it becomes a source of power and transformation. Jung understood this. He knew that only by embracing our totality, both light and shadow, can we unlock our true potential for growth and evolution. This process, though challenging, is the only path to inner freedom and a more conscious, just world. The shadow, then, is not an enemy, but an ally in our journey towards self-discovery. It challenges us to be whole, to reconnect with who we truly are, without fear, without shame. By facing the parts of ourselves we avoid, we discover a new kind of freedom, a freedom born from understanding and acceptance. So no matter how much you've tried to run from or ignore your shadow, it will always be there, waiting to be integrated. And the moment you face it, not as a threat, but as a part of you, life begins to open up in new, richer, and more authentic ways. The shadow isn't something to eliminate, but something to embrace and transform. What did you think of all this? Did it help you understand the power of what you've been avoiding? The shadow isn't an enemy, but a powerful ally for your self-awareness and growth. If this content resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss out on new insights. Leave a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and let me know how Jung's concept of the shadow has shown up in your life. And to deepen your journey, check out the other videos on the end screen. I'm sure they'll add a lot to your personal growth process. See you in the next video.